One page extravaganza. One page extravaganza.
Okay. All right. Hi. That's our theme song for the one-page stories that we do. That was written for us by Jim Newman. So thank you very much once again, Jim. All right, cats and kittens, guys and dolls. It's Friday. All day long. Who knew that was going to be the situation? Okay, so I've got today's page up. This is the digital page that I was drawing live on Wednesday. I'm trying to figure out what day I do things on. The posting for things is a day ahead, or a day off, sorry, from now instead of just the next day. And the reason that I'm doing that is just that I had an extra page and it's sort of presented a backlog now, so that's why I'm a day ahead. Jim says, "Hey, kiddo. Well, hey, cool cat. Welcome aboard, sir. And anybody else that's joined in with us. So that's why today's page is the one that we were drawing digitally live on Wednesday. A couple of things. We've got some exciting news happening that we're building up for. Next week is the build up for the big release of something. And here's a sneak peek of it. Let me see, how do I do this? Oh, how about this? What? Yeah, so there you go. So we'll be starting up about that on Monday. And Monday's also the Comic Jam here in London. So one of the things that I've been doing all week is, without any real intention, I've been doing monochromatic pages. So I'll show you, and then we'll get on to some more fun. So there's Mondays, and that's in pencil, colored pencil. There's Tuesdays, that's in red pen. There's Wednesday, that is in marker. There's Thursday, that's digital. And Fridays, that's digital as well. So it's just been a fun week of just sticking to a simple value scheme chromatically, and just having some fun in the sun, folks. But so I'm gonna kick the overhead on. Corbin, are you sticking or splitting? You sticking? Just asking the cat what he's doing before he does his little bit about meowing and running around. Hey, Robert, how you doing? Do I have one carved in stone? No carved in stone yet. No, none sculpted in plasticine. None. Let's see, what other things can we do? None made out of knitting. None made out of. No, we've got done some collage stuff. I've done some pages using collage methods, cutting out images from magazines and incorporating those into scenes and into a narrative. And I've done some digital collage. I did Chuck Norris's Fashion Action Show, and I think that's in One Page Story Extravaganza, Volume 1. Let me take a look. I think it is. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, so there's Chuck Norris's Fashion Action Show, and it's got Howard Cosell in there, and Chuck Norris actually did have fashion outfits that he designed in the 70s. They were stretchable pants so that you could do kung fu in your regular clothes. And, so I was riffing on that. That was the suggestion, though. Robert says, knitted comics, that'd be something. Where can I get a copy of that, Chris? If you look up Christopher Run C. Man, so I'll show you how it's written on the magic of the interwebs. So if you look up Christopher Run C. man, and on Amazon, and you'll find copies of my books there. That's right, says Corbin. You coming to say hi? Come on. All right, say hi. Hey, everybody, how you doing? It's me, Corbin. Hey, right on. There, got it out of your system now? So, yeah, thanks for asking, Robert. I appreciate that. Could probably put the link up if that makes the world easier. Oh, it's the longest link in the world. In the world? But we'll get it put on here. We have the technologies. There you go. Hello, everyone. Christopher, Robert, Jim, hiya. Welcome aboard, Linda. Welcome aboard, Tim. Okay, so what was I going to chat about? Oh yeah, so anyway, so there's the 5 pages that we did this week, and then the first one that'll be posted on Monday was on red cardstock with tape on it and drawn in white, and so that'll be posted for Monday. And Corbin's being all smoochy on my shoulder here. Hey, how about giving me $5, Dad? You know, I got another mic, Corbin, that I could clip on you if you want. That'd be great. Then all you guys hear is purring. So one of the things that I do on a consistent basis, and I showed these again Wednesday, because on Wednesday, Wednesday, because on Wednesday I took this rough sketch layout and I inverted it to the landscape format, and so that's the page that I posted today, based on this failed caper little narrative that I constructed from this smattering of putting characters and panels together. And it's something that I do on a regular basis, and just whatever an idea gets into my head, whether I'm watching a film or television or just after I've read a book, I try not to do it by looking at books. But there are things that you can learn at times from page layouts from other people. It's just, you don't want to replicate those. And so the intention is for study ones. And so when I do that, when I do study somebody else's page layouts, I think I have it in the other sketchbook. My desk is too long. So when I do study breakdowns by somebody else's work, I'll write study on them. And study means I'm not doing anything with this page. This is learning some interesting things and how combinations and shapes and movement within panels works. And just to make for more knowledge in the bank. And so, but I mean, clearly when you look at this page, that's the X-Men. There's no doubt about it that that's the X-Men. So, I'm not drawing an X-Men page. So you can learn from things, but then when you're trying to do your own generation of story, that's something you can utilize. And so I had 21 of these random smatterings of story that I'd put together at the end of last year. So I put all those up on Patreon for people to see. But I do this on a regular basis. And the reason that I do this, the other aspect of sketching for me is, Jim says, I heard Corbin has first right of refusal for all of Christopher's properties to be developed. Well, that's true. He's the boss. So when I'm working in my sketchbook and I'm looking at things and seeing what I can learn from those, this is me watching Alien Romulus. There's the actor who plays the android in Alien Romulus. Looks a little random. It's a weird angle, maybe. Maybe just a skinny face. Is the camera on a pitch? I don't know. Anyways, doesn't matter. So, this is generally how I'm sketching and doodling. But yeah. Anyhow, so there's ways I go about things. But one of the things that I find that really helps me for figuring out page layouts and page breakdowns and trying to figure out flow and where I apply visual tension in a page. And I talked about this recently when I did when we went through Wally Wood's 22 panels that always work, and talked about the things that these different applications can inform the reader through the simple usage of the differentiation of panels and the differentiation of how you lay out a scene. So, so I'll take, sometimes I'll do it in a portrait format, and sometimes I'll do it in a page format, or I'm sorry, in a landscape page format. And so that's what these are. And I don't know that they're necessarily showing too well. Let's try. Come on, robot. There you go. Okay. So, so this is a page I've laid down of, I don't know, a bunch of dead robots maybe. And this woman comes up and looks into a computer and she's going to do whatever. There's no thought behind these. There's no consideration of what could this story point be. What could the narrative really be, pre-established for these panels. And the reason I don't do that is it's just I feel like drawing some building. So I start drawing some Romanesque building, which becomes, contemporary city. And here's some people talking in an office, or and now this could be lady in a robot room or not, but she's looking at a see-through computer screen. She looking up something where it is, maybe. She walks over to the thing. She lets it scan her eye, and this little circular bank opens up, and out comes this miniature dude. There's not a lot more depth to that idea. Here's another one with a person who's telling us about the history of something. So here's Crazy Space City. Here's something about the robots, something about the thinkers. And again, it's just playing with doodling things off the top of your head and not having to worry so much about specifically what everything is. And Robert said, where can knitted comics, that'd be something. I missed that. I knew that something else was up there. Yeah, they really would be. It could be done. It could be done. Susanna says, hi, Runcey Man and all. Hey, Susanna, welcome aboard. So, well, now I'm on this knitted comic tangent in my head. I knew a phenomenal artist named Kevin Whitfield who was in London here. And he's moved over. I think he's in Colorado, and he went to teach there. But Kevin was pretty brilliant in the sense that as a textile artist, he could do these fantastically knitted objects. But one of the things that he could do with that is he had the facility to, while knitting those objects, is to stitch within them text, to knit words into those objects, which meant a lot of switching out of colors as he went through the process. And what I found so interesting about that is that he would do portraits of people, of their physicality. He would do designs of those forms, and he knit their story into it. And I was I had the lucky opportunity to, talk about, how I came up and my path to creativity. And so there's a 6-foot tall, because it doesn't have a head on it, but there's from the neck down, there's a 6-foot tall sculpture of me somewhere. And I just, I'm very appreciative of that. But it shows a real mastery of skill that Kevin has. So if you look up Kevin Whitfield textile art. Now, my point of bringing up Kevin's work is that, it shows us that there's the possibility that you could do a knitted one-page comic story page. How big it would have to be, I don't know. Whether or not it's a continuous knitting pattern across the whole thing, or if you knit color elements and stitch those into the other, I'm not sure how one would do it, because I can't knit. Let's start straightforward there. I have a little ruler that's actually for knitting and seeing the size of your needles, but it doesn't mean I can knit. It's just a ruler. Susan says, what's going on that side of the world? Oh, we're just kicking it up. Hanging out, hanging loose. It's cold outside. Anyways, so yeah. So there's some of the things that are a possibility. That's really fun. It's really fun, Robert. And I mean, this would help with that. If you were to preemptively visualize a story, a page breakdown, a rough, structure of a page, and how you're going to put those panels together, how you're going to put those visual aspects on said page, then yeah, there's something that you could do something more with. So here's, let's see, what have I got left in this? Oh, I think this is the other one. So here's more that I've done recently. Yeah, buddy. Just sit down. I got a needy cat. So here's characters running down a hallway. I think the intention was for them to get on a shuttle ship, a spaceship. There they are waiting, and then here's the ship landing and kicking up a whole bunch of dust and smoke. Here is ominous bad dudes, or collection of ominous people. Here's outer space and some spaceships and some sort of celestial thing. What, again, the whole point of generating these little page breakdowns and layouts is not so much to think about what is the specific story I'm telling, as it is to just explore page, scenes, right? Here, however, in this one, is me doing a reinterpretation of. So, there's a comic book that I've mentioned before called Legion of Superheroes, and it starts off with 1958. Al Plastino and Otto Binder did a story in the back of Superboy where three kids from the future. So as Clark Kent is walking home from school, this kid says, "Hi, Superboy." "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, So he heads home. And then there's another kid that sees him and says, "Oh, hi, Clark Kent," when he's in a Superboy costume. And then the third person is this young lady who says, "Don't worry, Superboy. Don't be afraid that we know your secret identity is Clark Kent. We're from the future." And so then these three kids arrange themselves. Now, every time I've seen someone reinterpret this story over the years, because the original one is way back in 58, every time I've seen someone do a modern retelling of it, it's always the same thing. "Hi, Superboy. Hi, hi, Clark Kent. Hi, it's us from the future." And it takes, 2 pages, 3 pages. What I thought was, how could I compress that? How could I expedite that? And so I've got the first kid seeing him on the way home from school, another kid shouting from down, another person calling him on the phone or shouting from downstairs, or maybe it's mom and dad calling up from downstairs saying, "Clark, there's someone here that says they know where Superboy lives," or whatever. And then he looks out the window as he's trying to jump out to skedaddle out of there before he's caught by these kids. He sees a girl down on the ground who says, "Superboy, we're from the future." He falls from surprise, and he floats above the ground rather than landing on it. And there's the three kids from the future. So it's a different retelling, a different version of it, with the whole sneaking out of the window thing. But it's just a way to visually explore the telling of a story and to see if there's some sort of different way I can do that. So I'm a big advocate of people trying these things and to try to break those down. I've mentioned them X amount lately, and I'm going to continue to do so because there's so much fun that we can have in our storytelling if we just go with it. Try different things. Get zen, babies. Yeah. So let's see what I got. I'm pulling up some tissue paper here, and I've got a bunch of random stuff. So today what I thought I would do is I'm going to put together some elements here, and I got a big face I drew and did nothing with. And then we'll make a little story out of this. How's that sound? Sounds great, Chris. Okay, I'm glad. All right, there are some people running, and yeah, there's the person jogging. So there we go. So I've got some of these little elements and bits, and then I've got some yellow paper here. I'll take this and tear some of that up and throw this in as well. And so what I've got right here is I've got some gesso, and I've got some medium, some gel medium. And so what I'm going to do, I've got this piece of cardstock, and I'm going to take these different bits of business, and we're going to apply them to the surface, just like yesterday I did so with tape on that red piece of cardstock. The difference being today is that we're using a acrylic medium, and which is a transparency. But what we're going to do is incorporate these elements into our page, and try to come up with some kind of narrative on this surface. So we've got this giant face. So maybe I will put giant face on the one side. And I haven't got a suggestion per se for this. We're sort of flying by the seat of our pants. Well, you don't wear pants, Corbin. Corbin doesn't wear pants. He thinks they're so last week. Anyways. So all I'm doing is folding over once, applying a little pressure there, and then ripping along the fold. Is it perfect? Nope. Does it have to be? So there we go. We got some bits of whatnot, and so we'll put this together. So let's see what we can do with this. I'm going to crop this a little bit so it fits on an 11 by 17 in a landscape format. If I was to do it in a portrait format, I could probably fit the whole thing on, but I believe it would take up the majority of it, and that's unnecessary. So cut that off. Okay, so we'll start by putting this face down. So I'm using a cardstock underneath, and that's the benefit of using a heavier, denser surface, is that it doesn't ripple as much as it might when you were to use a regular piece of vellum or printer paper. What do you call it, Corbin? Looking for a brush. Looking for a brush. Yeah. All right, we got one. So, as usual, if people have suggestions for one-page story ideas, feel free to throw them at me. Well, don't throw them. I'm sensitive. I might not know the duck. And, yeah, just shoot them my way, and we'll figure out how we can go about applying those. So I'm just going to put some of this medium down here on the surface. And then we're going to spread it out and attach our big head to it. Big head. What is this? Oh, this is a texture medium. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, let's get a different medium before we get too deep into this. What are you? Oh, it's right here behind me. There it is. Okay. Oh, look how loquacious that is. Loquacious. And it'll dry. So maybe this texture underneath might give us some interesting things. So I'm just smearing this all around where we're going to put our giant head. And I'm not worried about going over it, you know. We'll clean that up. So there we go. So then I'm going to go over it with the medium as well, and I find that that's the bit that helps it to stick. Just making sure I'm not missing anything. Dear Chris, you've won $1 bazillion. Why, thank you. Corbin, we're making a mess. And he's not helping me at all. Okay, so now I'm going to put this medium on top. So now we've got this, there's going to be an interesting granulation under here. So the fun thing about using old sketches is similar to the idea that I was talking about with roughing out pages. By using old sketches, just random drawings that you might have kicking around, and putting those into the structure of whatever you might be developing for a new page, you're going to find opportunities there that you might not have considered when you were doing the original drawing. I mean, that might have been purposeful for something that it never ended up being applied to. Or you did a drawing and said, I hate this, and you thought you'd never use it. Well, don't throw those away. Hold on to those. And the reason that holding on to those has its benefits is that you can do random other things with them, right? Right. Okay, so now we've got our character here, and we've got a picture of these guys running, and we've got a picture of this gal running, and then we've got some different colored papers and tissue. So what we'll do is we will work these across the surface and see what this does for us. So back into the medium. I appreciate everybody stopping in and saying hi. It's very nice of everyone. I know that you never know what I'm doing today, but it's always nice when people stop in for a sec. Okay, we've got a little bit out there. We'll spread that across. And so if this overlaps a little bit over the head here, that's fine. That's okay with us. Eventually this will all dry and be adhered down to the surface. So here's our next element to go into our page. And yet, despite this, you can still see through it the lines for the head here. So we can still do a little bit of interesting overlap as we're going. Might as well just keep this room open, because every time I close it, it flicks or something here. I want medium all over the darn place. So. Okay, so now I've also got this picture of this lady running. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you see? Here, let me move the camera. So here's the guy's face laid in. So that's now attached to the paper. I'm still zoomed in. I will, honestly, folks, I will get a grip and smooth out my process here, but in the meantime. So here's our whole page as it's coming now. So again, I'm not worried about, oh, I dripped some on her face. Yeah, but then we're going to lay all kinds on top of her face. So now we've got this lady in. Now we've got these other elements here, like the checker pattern tissue paper and the yellow paper that we assembled together. We've also got some pieces that we tore off the top of this fella's noggin. So we're just going to spread some of this out throughout the image, and there's no part of me that has any intention about specifically where things are allocated. We're just looking for some sort of feeling of balance as we put things around. Like here's a piece of this paper from here. Well, you can put this along the bottom. So I'm not, so the whole thing about this process is that as I'm sticking all this stuff down, I'm going to come in and cut images into, we'll cut some panel shapes into here. We can add some material around this person running and put a park in behind them or something like that, and start to structure some kind of narrative by just using these random images. And by approaching things this way, it just allows the whole thing to be very organic and to not be too locked up in some governing structure that we have this expectation of what our output's going to be. And ideally things are going to be drawing in time for stuff to happen. But I'm going to keep going. I'll work wet and wet at first, and we're going to put some white into this face. We're going to use some of that gesso and start cutting some some form into this person's gob. Oh, that's plenty for the rest of it. There we go. Good heavens. So we use this up here. A little bit of yellow. And have another piece of this in here. Way too much. It's all right. I'll just peel off whatever else we're not going to put down. And then we'll put a bit of it right here for this tissue paper. And again, it becomes taking these patterns and taking these pieces of colored paper and putting them into the composition. Right? So here's this yellow. Put that in there as well. So it's all rather random, but at the same time, despite the randomness of it all, we've got some kind of beginning for a page. And whether it might have been something we considered approaching in this way otherwise, well, that's the whole point of something like this, is that we're really just going for it. Right? Susanna says, that's interesting. Oh, I'm glad you feel that way, Susanna. So now I've got plenty of this medium on here. I'm just going to brush out some of the folds, little pieces of buckling in the paper. That's fine. Just tamp that down. And a tiny bit off the paper. That's all right. Brush that out, and I'm going to throw that brush over there. Okay, so, all right, team. Ho, ho, ho. So, now I'm going to grab another brush, and what I'm going to do is that I've got this container of white gesso, and so, where's a dry spot? You're close enough. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of gesso out of here, out of the container, and I'm just going to put it on the lid, because this way, if this becomes impure, I don't want to taint the entire jar. So that's why I'm going about it this way. So I've got this lid, I've got this brush. His name is Montmartre. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start coming into this first piece that I started applying down, and we'll start putting some white down into the composition and just picking and choosing some application. So the place that I was looking at a book called the 1995-1996 Watch Annual that was put out by Vanguard Publishing way back when. And what it had in there was notes from the artist and instructor Baron Story that he would hand out to all of his students. And what these notes had were all of these traditional types of application that one could use in putting together, I'm going to use a different brush, something a little chunkier, in putting together their compositions. And some of those methods would be applying some paint to a surface and putting a resist down and and scraping it back and peeling that resist up and applying some like a wash over that and cutting some negatives application like some white and cutting out negative shapes into these positive colors, all these different ways that he would go about building up an image. And so you can imagine, I bet you some of these paintings of his are really, really dense. So when they put out the stories of the Endless through DC Comics, and it had a number of artists working with the writer, who's now blacklisted for being a kind of a jerk, if true, allegedly, which is disappointing. He's one of my favorite writers. So you get all these different artists working and doing interpretations of characters like dream, despair, delirium, destiny, death. And so Baron Story did despair, and so it was 16 paintings of despair. And so he would use all these different methods, in order to build up these images. And I got to see firsthand all these different kinds of applications across this work, and phenomenal. I have a book of his that I bought years ago called the Marat de Sade Journals, and it's fictitious letters passed back and forth between Marat, who's one of the leaders of the French Revolution, and the Marquis de Sade. And really interesting approach, but neither of them very good people. I mean, Marat would make lists while lying in his bathtub because he had crippling arthritis, and one of the only places where he could physically have some sense of equilibrium to work on his political stuff was while lying in the bathtub, which is where, coincidentally, he passed away. Well, passed away is being generous. So with this line art that I've got in this big sketch, I'm just using those pre-cut little shapes from this quick scribbling method of drawing this and having those be the little definable breaks in the application of the white rather than just doing a big flat coat of white over the whole face. Because letting that underlying color come through is interesting and fun to me. The beauty of a person's face this big for a page like this is that there's tons of room for text, right? So even while we're having fun doing this mixed media page, we recognize, of course, that X amount of it is going to be covered up because we need places for the dialogue to happen. There is a part of me that wants to try a prose style story, akin to like a children's book layout. I grew up reading Rupert, and Rupert had 4 different applications of storytelling on every page, and one of those was just verse. And I've always wanted to do a story where it's just verse beneath a panel, but for whatever reason, I've never actually sat down and followed through on that. Largely because I'm caught up in probably the fusion of these two elements together, so visual and textual. So some of the fun things that we could do, let's say in our narrative, is that there's plenty of room here for you to have the word stop. Like just stop right across there. And that gives a good punch opening there, and there's lots of room on the top of his head for us to do that. Sometimes that's challenging to do in a limited amount of panel space, but because this guy's noggin is so big, well, there we go. You could also have them saying, "Pardon me, but do you have any Grey Poupon?" It doesn't necessarily matter what we've decided as yet. That story's sort of going to come through as we go. So while I'm painting these elements into his face over here, ideally this side is drying a little bit more so I can start putting some pencil, some pen, whatever tool we're going to use over there into that surface. See, so there we've got some yellow entering into the mix that we're just going over here and just incorporating it, even as though it were like I'll show you down here with the checkered paper that's down there. It's the same thing. We're just going over and just working it in, not overly concerned about, well, there doesn't have to be some logistical, why have you used that paper on that surface? Like, why have you used that checker pattern? What does it symbolize? Nothing. Just makes it more visually interesting. And it becomes there's less notoriety to it as we go through the composition and we're covering it up everywhere we require it to be covered. Then it just becomes part of the overall image. Just making sure I'm not missing anything. I don't know. I know this is a different approach, especially considering that it's been a lot of drawing. We're going to get more drawing elements into this, but so I find that mixed media stuff, there is a degree of expediency that is required. Because you just got to kind of go with, as you're laying things down. There was a Canadian artist from Montreal named Gupta, and he would work abstraction, and he would always say things like it would take whatever time it needs. So there was no established clock on any given piece, and he would always try different things out. I've always liked that. Things take whatever time they need. If I want to work quick today, I'm working quick. If I want to work slow, I'm working slow. There's no, the only thing that applies to me is that I've set myself an ambition of a page a day, but outside of that, loosey-goosey. So this face is starting to come together a little bit. I'm getting this sort of base application of white down. And as I do this, I'm going to pick little areas for more emphasis, more opaque application of white in order to emphasize certain regions. Pull them forward, by putting that light value on there. You should pull them forward in order to represent, like the raised cheek here, something like that. But I'll give this little bit of some time to dry. Just making sure I'm not missing anything. So as usual, I'm curious about what people are working on. People are always welcome to put that in the chat. If you've got anything coming out, releases or anything like that. Jim, if you're... Oh, you know what just dawned on me? Jim, is your book... Jim was working on a book to go along with his film that he's just completed. I'm not sure if I saw something about that's done. If that's the case, I gotta get one. I like seeing behind the process of stuff. I like seeing character development. Things like that. So, and Jim's got a lot of cool characters in his films. I think it might have come out when I was sick. I don't know. I have to check. Foolish of me. If anybody else has any projects coming out, let us know. So I'm using a little chisel brush here. Pulling up all this little details, these little emphasis points. Gives him a little more character in that face of his. I've been watching a lot of Nero Wolfe, you know, Maury Chaykin, Timothy Hutton, stuff from the early 2000s. And I want to do I've been thinking about doing a story with Nero Wolfe in it. You know, that's the beautiful thing about independent stories, is that we can just incorporate a character into our background. You know, especially something like Nero Wolfe, which is license free at this point because it's X amount of years old. Sherlock Holmes, you can have him hanging out at a coffee shop in the back of a scene. It's tricky sometimes. You want to incorporate those things, but there are readers that will look at that and go, why is that there? Is Sherlock Holmes going to be a factor in this story? I don't know. I just wanted to draw Sherlock Holmes. Okay. So this is starting to tie in. So now that I'm putting the white around the face and it compresses this face down onto the surface around it, we're going to do a little bit more of that action over here. So here I am covering up some of this. I keep wanting to call it, you know, Purina puppy chow pattern, but I don't have a dog. I don't know where this came from. It's definitely not that. I think it might have been a table, like a tissue paper for table settings or something. I don't know. I've received some cool papers from people in the mail. It might be from one of those drops. Very much appreciate those. Hey, do something with this, funny boy. Draw on this paper if you dare, comic guy. There's beautiful papers like Yolanda. It's Devin Rex for art. Fantastic. Jelly printer. Jelly plate printer. Man, words are difficult today. She sent me a bunch of papers in the mail. Maybe that came through that. Maybe. So I'm just going to come up in this little area over here and then on to the next part. Try not to smudge it as this part as I go. If I do, well, you know, I have to work it in. So I've been doing a lot of teaching lately, and I've been really enjoying that. I like passing on whatever nonsense is rolling around this thinky cage of the mind I have. Okay, so we've got a good little dent here. Let's come in with some what do we got? Here's a HB pencil. This is drawn in pencil, so we'll add. So if this is where that head, see, it's still a little wet, but that's okay. Some of that graphite in there. And then we've got these two cool cats. Let's see what ink does on this. We want to try ink. We want to try Sharpie. Try pen. Try pen. There we go. So now I've got these two fellas running, and it's fairly dry over here. So I'm going to start pulling some of the details out of here in this sketch. Just chasing it a line around on the contour here. I can do the same the side of this kid's noggin. I'm gonna have to make sure I don't get a whole bunch of ink clogged up on this pen, or paint, I'm sorry, clogged up around this pen as I'm pushing ink into areas that may not be entirely dry. So I'm changing some things up a little bit here as I go along. It's okay, I know the guy who sketched this originally. His name's Christopher. He's very tall. Yeah, that's all right. I like that. See if we go, what we do with it next. I might put some watercolor here as well. We'll see. We'll see. It all depends on how it dries, right? So here's one of our first guys, and we'll keep building up on him in a minute, but here's his pal. We'll get him in there as well. What are these guys doing? Don't entirely know. They're going that way, though. So, I mean, the story can even, because we've got two different types of running here, the story can even be along the lines of, you know, some people have to run to things, you know, and I mean, like, you know, this kind of thing, not this is just running to run. But who knows? Like, we'll see where that develops in our head as we go along. So because there's moisture still in the paper, it gives this thicker line, you know, because of the softness of everything. So I'm, you know, being aware, trying to be aware a little bit here of how I put this down. Just adding some interesting shapes and folds into the clothing. Pursue some more of that over here. So I can come back in to this area as it's drying a little bit more and try to apply some of this black line, maybe use it as a unifying element, but I've got to make sure that this is still fairly wet and dense, so we'll make those decisions as we come back. But I want to tie things together in, you know, some kind of governable way. And I mean, at this point, one of the things that I could do is, oh, I peeled that up a tiny bit. That's okay. It's okay. I'm not crying. So we can try to put some kind of frame across the top. And then we'll go right over to the edge here, but I'm going to leave a little space because we're going to put something else in this panel. So now I'm creating some kind of semblance of structure to this page. I think that's about right. So the nice thing about a squaring ruler is that it does half the work for you. I call it a squaring ruler. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be called, but that's what I call it. Well, I also sometimes call them Stanley. Because all those lines intersect throughout the ruler, it makes it really easy in order to square off your lines, draw nice rectangular frames. Oh, I went right over her face. That was dumb. Rewind, rewind. Back. Go back a step in Photoshop. So we'll figure out the bottom of her page as we go. So let's clean this up a little bit. This bald lady running. Running, running, and running, running. Maybe we'll give her some hair even. Where's that white? Do I have a white? We'll do the gesso. That's more, that opacity works for us. There. Hopefully that's gonna. And we'll put some white up here through the gutter of these two panels. Gadzooks. People are gonna think we know what we're doing. Boy, would they be wrong. Okay. So now as things are drying up and coming together a little more cohesively, we've got a panel shape up here. We've got a secondary panel shape. Well, I guess it would be technically the third panel. Now, we could also put a side to this panel as well. Define its end point over there. That works. Robert says, I just fell asleep at work. So either, hold on, I'll get back to that. So either work is boring or Chris has the voice of a hypnotist. Would you like me to help you quit smoking or some other bad behavior that you have? Look into my eyes. Look directly into my eyes. Don't look around my eyes, but look into my eyes. You're under. There's a funny sketch. That's what I'm referring to there. There's a television show called Little Britain. And Matt Lewis has this one hypnotist character who's always being found out for his stupid behaviors and you know, his he's always being caught up anyways. And so every time somebody calls him out, or every somebody catches him short, or exposes some sort of flaw, he always goes, "Okay, look in my eyes. Look directly in my eyes." He says the same thing every time. You're under. Okay, just for argument's sake, I didn't expect to have to pay for the whole meal. I thought we'd be going Dutch, so I would really appreciate it if you would just chip in, since I don't think this date's going very well anyways. And you're back in the room. And the person goes, "You know, we can split the check." It's just so good. Looks in his wallet, realizes he forgot to bring money. Okay, you're under. Definitely go on that. He does the whole thing again in order to get to pay the whole bill. Just a dumb character. But it's the best hypnotist sketch I've ever seen. His mother gives him a hard time for being single. Puts her under. And the best part of it is that I think that the big connecting joke is that people are just humoring him. He's not actually hypnotizing anybody. I think people just, you know, go along with it. which makes one, identifiably evaluate how many people actually just do go along with it when they're, oh, I was hypnotized into being a cow last night on stage, and boy, that was embarrassing. And you're like, really? A cow? Yeah, I was like, moo, moo. It sounded just like that. I'm like, how do you remember that if you're hypnotized? Oh, some of my friends told me. Oh, yeah. Who'd you go with? Well, I went by myself. Yeah, I'm purposely trying to make people fall asleep in the workplace during my streams here. And now we're gonna put a happy little line. Just a happy little line over here beside his friends, and bring everybody together. And nice happy little painting here. The circle of life, folks. The circle of life. Bob Ross, greatest pacifist in the history of television. Not only was he a peace and love kind of guy once he got out of the army, but he also lulled people to sleep with his smooth and silky voice. I'd like to challenge that, try to, win that crown, except for the fact that every now and then I go, hello, I'm Johnny Cash, and I throw the whole thing off. So, got to throw in bad impressions every now and then. That's what makes the world go round. Okay, so now as we're moving through here, and as we're applying ourselves to the different elements that we've put in place, and by coming through with this heavy black line and starting to outline some of the aspects of the panels and in the drawings that are now within them, it stops being all these random papers that you put in, and the more as you go along, the more that you're unifying the elements, and that you're having a consistency of trying to tie this element sitting over top of that one, or there's this, and structuring your page, then it just becomes this cohesive whole. You look at it through most stages along the way, and it can oftentimes look like, what if this is just glop. This is just nonsense. But allow that time for that to come together. Allow that time for things to develop. There's always this, what is it? Bob Ross called them happy little accidents. Isn't that what Bob Ross said? But it takes time, and often when we're working on stuff, we really want things to come together quickly, and we really want things to be what we were. Okay, there we go. So, sorry, I just got a message from my mother. I'm going to go out in the icy streets. Please don't do that. So, once we start tying these elements together, as we're giving ourselves the time required for things to dry, for allow ourselves to assess what we're doing along the way, so that we can maybe see some new opportunities or ideas, like, as this is all drying, is the graphite going to adhere easier? Maybe this is a softer graphite, like a 5B or something like that. I'm not sure, but things take time. Things take time to come together and dry. See, this is still fairly moist over here. I don't want it to buckle too much. So what we can start doing is figuring out what are we going to do in these panels over here. So if it's a page about people running, we can have some fun with that. Like we've got these ambulance guys running along, or I guess they're soldiers. I think they're World War II or World War I soldiers. Yeah, he's going to be after I put this Alabama Blammer in here. So there we go. And we'll give him, let's give him an older over the shoulder gun here. And we'll put the butt of it sticking out there, and the neck of it like so. So there's his fine little doodad as he's running along with his friend. So now they're both, ready to go. So we can start filling in more and more of things as we move along. And then of course the narrative, the text, when we put that in, we're going to have that consistently move through the overall image and allow that part of it, the textual part of it, to tie together what might at first appear to be discordant images. So yeah, it's just small steps, right? Long walk. But there's part of me that's considering, what do we do for this hair? And see, I want to get, I could do ink, I could do acrylic, I could do watercolor. But if I'm going to be moving back over this area, I don't want to quite do that yet. So let's see what we can do with this pen at this point. So I'm not going to fill in all the lines. I'm just going to pick out little emphasis points, because your eye is going to fill in the rest anyways. It's a beautiful thing about the humans, is that our eyeballs do an awful lot of associative work for us. You can see, if you've got words that are jumbled up, but the first and the last letter might be in the right place. Oftentimes people can make out what that word is without having it spelled correctly, because they can look at it and go, oh, tree bark, or whatever it is, So it's the same thing with visual elements, is that oftentimes our eyes go, oh, that's an eyebrow, even though there's a few breaks in it, and here's an eyeball, even though it's maybe not as clearly defined as it could be. So we don't necessarily have to come in and, ink up that whole thing. I like finding those little emphasis points and having that, allowing that pencil to peek through, and that might be more beneficial for us. You can hear as my finger lifts off, maybe. Oops, I'm sorry, I forgot to not touch the mic. You can hear as my finger lifts off that the surface is still somewhat tacky. It is so tacky. It's okay. It'll dry. So there's a textured gel medium here. So there's all this granulation that's throughout that, and I think it's kind of fun. I like those little applied textures that, whether it's erroneously laid in or not, they can add character to things. So I'm going to put a second line across. The top of the image here. That's the top of his noggin. There we go. Cap that in. And then we'll put some more white to these little areas. We might have made a mistake or something like that. So maybe I should make if Robert made a joke about me knocking him out at work, maybe if that's a benefit to him and he ever has a problem with sleep apnea or anything, just let me know. I can read you the fishing news or something like that and see if that does the trick. The price of carp has gone up. I don't know. There's something fishy over here. What are they building in there? Yeah. All right. So we've got picking and choosing some of those marks there. Little nudges, The Hoffman, the deep values that we apply to a composition, Hans Hoffman would say, is the push of color, the push of value, and then the light values that we apply to a composition is the pull, the push and pull of those values. And so you could have a really small circle of dark blue punching on the one side, and you can still have symmetry in that composition with a big circle of yellow, because those two things in those two different scales and those two different values work with one another. And I always kind of like that. And so when I think about that in the application to line, right, I don't have to draw the entire line across the lip or the entire line around the eye. We just want to put it in those parts where we really want them to be dark. And in that way, because we've got that pencil in there already, it pulls your eye around. It sort of works in a similar fashion, I would think. I don't know. Okay, so these are drying a little more over here. There we go. So I'm picking and choosing some shapes, and I'm going to come in as I go with this white, and as these places that I'm establishing with the black, if I come in now with the white, I can pull some of this focus out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a little hit of the white in certain spots and see if that, a little bit of opacity, and if that helps to pull some of these parts of the face towards the viewer, so that by going over that eyebrow, that brow ridge, maybe it'll pull the brow ridge up and start to define that as a raised surface on the face. And we'll put a little pinch of that there in the eye. I think I'm going to have to come in there with a little more opacity. But we're not doing the whole face. We're just picking and choosing certain spots that we want to rise up. Anybody else got parachute clubs stuck in your head now? Or am I just showing my age and my Canadianness? That could be bad. That could be really bad, that reference, because you could be thinking of the wrong song and walking around the house for the rest of the day going ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-yeah. Let's see how that looks. I can look over at the image, the screen here, and see how that applies. So there's a little bit. You can see a little bit now with the eye that is pulling forward. Little line along that top lip. Yeah. And then emphasis on that bottom lip. Put some emphasis areas around that chin. So for having a rather monotone image, we're starting to get some differentiation in the surface now. Oh, happy day. So we'll come back in here and in here. I made that mistake earlier, putting that line across and then deciding to pull that panel shape back. So now I'm just coming over here and filling that in. Problem with ink is that oftentimes it can peek back out from under pen, or from under paint, I'm sorry. I'm going to just go over it a couple of times. Like all the cool kids at the back of the bus. And I'm just lightly going over this yellow a little bit, the thin wash of this white. Just cut that back a little bit. Not very much, but something. You know, what we could do is come up here. Of course, I can clean up some of these edges once I scan it and put it into Photoshops and make some of that disappear. But, you know, sometimes it's about having nice, pretty art too, to do something with. It's all about trying different things, right? Challenge of being in an age where you can composite things together and you draw, you know, all these elements that make up a page on 16 different pieces of paper is that, you know, when people are like, what's that original art look like? And here's a pile. I know that there's certain, I know one artist at least who he works with Marvel and DC and different publishers, and he has for he's been in the industry a long time, and he draws characters out on pieces of cardstock or Bristol, and then they're all scanned and put into the scenes, and that's great. But I've seen him at conventions where he's just got this stack of random drawings of people in suits walking just walking, or here's somebody just pointing up, and it's like, I don't know why people don't like buying this original art. I'm like, well, because they don't have context for it. You know, the context of the image. I mean, because a lot of people go to those shows and want to buy the original art based on what it's from, you know, what story it is, and all those different elements that you have in that finished page. If you can't see that in the original art, those people won't want to buy those. So it's tricky. It's tricky. So let's put, this is going to be a little wet still, I'm sure, but I'm going to try not to kill my ruler. But let's put the bottom of this panel here. Oops, there we go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to edge the one panel, do a little over under here, and have it this panel with the lady running is going to reach underneath the panels that are up above. Like so. So that, clean that up. I hate smudges. And then we can do, whoops, I'm sorry, one more part. And then we'll have that top of that panel identified right here between these two. What do we got here? What's your name? So I'm using this jelly roll pen here to try to push back that white. Keeps peeking through. Yeah. So overall, things are starting to tie together a little bit more, and we're starting to get something popping here, which is Groucho Marx film. just trying to tamp that down a little bit, and we'll put a dot of paint over that, get rid of that ink bleed, and clean up this edge. So we can, where did I put, there you are. So we can now have this tie behind this panel, and then we'll continue that on like so. So that maybe we can put this panel under like so and back down to the corner. Like all the cool kids at the back of the bus are doing. There we go. And then we'll connect that to our friend up above. And we will, so I'm making a separation between these two panels and these two panels the same. So there we go. And then this one. So ideally this is going to make the eye move like this, but the text is optimally going to direct us a little more clearly. But it's just some interesting shapes together, some interesting panels this way. And as we're putting together our overall composition, I'm just going to clean up a couple points. Reload up on some fuel. Supersize. There we go. It's going to take a few goes at that, but that's all right. We have the technologies to do so. Sometimes it takes a few goes. Yeah, and we'll come through here and pull this down a little bit more. So all these different surface applications to our page, you know, they start unifying at this, around this point is where you'll start seeing things tie together. And then as the composition is fully drawn in, then you're going to be focusing on that first and foremost rather than the random patterns that are in behind it. Ideally. So let's see how our white cheeks are drying here. Another little pinch there. Just push that opacity there. Yeah, okay. And then we'll get as we get up into the forehead here, we'll make the brow ridge, you know, prominent, sure, but then we're going to have a nice plateau here across the center of the forehead. You know, emphasis points on his proboscis. Yeah. I'm happy. Let's see how that looks. Oh, I'm pleased as punch. I'm pleased as pumpernickel. It's a little askew. The camera is not sitting quite right, but that's okay. Maybe it. No, I think it's a little stretched in the features, the drawing. That's all right. We can work with this beauty thing. So yeah. So when I'm doing stuff, and I'm doing true like mixed media application, I really want to take some of these sort of jam together ideas And whether it's jamming together ideas like doing the the layouts, the thumbnails of panels, or if it's jamming together ideas like taking just random smatterings of drawings that I keep around and papers that I keep around and throwing those together onto a surface and trying to develop a narrative composition out of that. All of these sort of things just allow you creatively to be fluid and allow you creatively to not get too anxious and get too worried about, well, what's the story and how's this coming together with this, and we can work those things out as we go along, but it's never going to happen unless you leave yourself the affordance of opportunity to be open to experimentation, to be open to, um, some of those chance situations that as you're assembling things and as they're coming together, you're going to find things that you might not have necessarily discovered if you just didn't give yourself a chance to play, I think is where I think the easiest approach to this sort of method is we're playing. And in the course of playing, we're assembling something more. So, that's the idea. But there's a good start for our page here. We've got our principal character who's going to be narrating the situation at hand. We've got these different examples of the ideas that he's presenting. We'll develop all these more. We'll put scenes into where the characters are. We'll establish that further as we go. But we've got a really fun start in a small amount of time because, again, if you have some place to collate some of this information, whether it's old drawings that you didn't use or random pieces of paper that you can, incorporate into your stuff, I encourage it. I mean, I've got some shelves here of stuff that I'll just open up a little folder, grab a bunch of stuff out, and let's go. And yeah, it makes it easier in the long run for you to just get to seeing what you can develop without overthinking it. So, okay, I think we've been having some fun in the sun, but it's we're about an hour and a half, and I've got to do some running around as usual. So, thank you very much, everybody, for coming by. Thank you very much for Linda, the moderator with the mostest, and for all of you that took part in our chat. If you see any of the names in our chat that because in all honesty, all of us tend to look towards other creators and engage in their processes. So a lot of the people that'll be in the chat, Robert Doan, Jim Luan, Linda Renz, Susanna Silva, everybody has got their own means of creative expression. So please go check out their work and give them a good old couple likes. And yeah, you never know. There's so many things that we can learn, we can glean from each other, and try to figure out what this can build on in our own work. So lots of opportunities out there. All right, that's it for me today, gang. Thanks so very much for coming in, and I'll be back on Monday at 2 p.m. EST. I hope you have a great weekend. All right, bye for now. Go create something.